Okay, everybody. We'll get started in 1 minute. The Seder Whiz, insights and tools, how to make your Seder more meaningful, fun, and engaging. Before we get started, I have everyone on mute, but before we get started, you could unmute yourself if you'd like, just to say good evening to everyone. Okay, let's get started. As always, when we run the different Zooms, I have everyone on mute, and that's only for sound quality. It's not because we don't want to hear from anyone. So at any moment, if you have a question or you're looking for further clarification, just unmute yourself, chime in, and this way it could be more engaging and more interactive. So welcome to the Seder Whiz. And our goal tonight is to spend a quality hour where we can prepare both practically and spiritually for a Pesach Seder that is relevant, fun, and engaging. Now, the Pesach Seder is arguably the most widely practiced Jewish ceremony of the year. In other words, there will be more people sitting down, more Jewish people will find themselves at a Pesach Seder than will find themselves even for a Kol Nidre service. And that's quite important, and we have to take that into consideration. And I think the reason for that is that the message of birth, renewal, freedom, these liberty, these themes of Pesach resonate very, very deeply with us, and they continue to be very relevant despite the thousands of years that separate us from biblical times and the actual story of the Exodus. So it's a great opportunity, the Pesach Seder is, and we want to make the most of it. Now, every Seder is going to be different. Some of the ideas that we're going to discuss tonight will be practical for some, and some will be impractical for others. It's really going to depend on what type of Seder you're having. For example, it's going to depend a lot on the age, for example, of the Seder participants. Some ideas that we're going to share tonight are obvious, and some are a bit less obvious. But it's really important to note, just by way of introduction, that there's no such a thing as a perfect Seder. It really will depend on the dynamics of the family. It will depend also, as I mentioned before, of the age of the guests, etc. But what we really want and what we're aiming for is people to connect in a very, very genuine way. So what we really want is for people to connect in a very, very genuine way. And I'll tell you, for me, for example, I've had the honor, I've had the privilege of hosting communal Seders probably since I was 17 years old. That was the first time I hosted a communal Seder, and that was in Moscow, Russia. And then I had the opportunity in places like San Francisco and places like Budapest Hungary, places like Ocean City, Maryland, some of the places where I was privileged to host a community Seder. And really, I've had some personal goals. Goal number one is to perform the mitzvot that need to be done. At the end of the day, there are a number of mitzvot, not too complicated, very nice, that are very unique and specific to Pesach. For example, to tell the story. That's one of the mitzvahs. But we want to do it in a multi-dimensional, interactive kind of way, where it's an experience, it's fun for everyone, especially the kids. B is the big mitzvah of the night, to eat lots of matzah. That's for some a bit harder than others, for some a bit easier than others. C, drink 4 cups of wine, or grape juice for those who shouldn't be drinking wine. And then D, to eat some bitter herbs, or at least some of the romaine lettuce. That's really the mitzvah of the night, if you think about it. Tell the story, eat matzah, eat bitter herbs, and have 4 glasses of wine. My other goal is that people should be engaged, so engaged that they don't notice how hungry they are. That's a very, very challenging task when we have a Jewish family around the table. And then 3, something about the Seder leaves people inspired in their day-to-day modern lives. And what I mean by that is, Jewish holidays are not only historical commemorations, but Jewish holidays are spiritually meaningful. Yes, on one hand, the Pesach Seder arrives, and we're sitting around as a family and we're commemorating the fact that our ancestors were once upon a time enslaved in Egypt, and then they experienced a great freedom, and here we are commemorating that. Yes, and we do that on the time. But at the essence of a Jewish Yom Tov is that the energy that entered the world on that day, in order for that moment, in order for that miracle to take place, that very energy, that very essence re-emerges into the world. So every Chag, when we're celebrating on that time, we are celebrating that energy. And what, more importantly, we're trying to tap into that energy, that it becomes part of our lives. On Hanukkah, we look to gain light over darkness, right? On Shavuot, it's our mitzvot. And on Pesach, as you can all imagine, the theme is freedom. So freedom also has to be something very, very personal. And that's why I always say there are some illegal words, some very, very bad words that cannot be mentioned at the Pesach Seder. Some really, really bad words. One of them is ancient Hebrews. Very bad word at the Seder. Have you ever been sitting around with a teenager and you tell them, you begin a conversation about ancient Hebrews? Teenagers have something that we don't have. It's called an off button. And when they hear things like ancient Hebrews, or when they hear things like thousands of years ago, that button just turns off, and there you have it. So it's really not about the ancient Hebrews. It's really not about thousands of years ago. It's about the here and the now. That's what we're discussing over here. The freedom, it's a very, very, very personal thing. So in saying that, some of you may have countered that there's 2 kinds of people that come to a Seder. There's the one that is in a rush, looking at their watch, making faces, complaining, and maybe even sometimes being cynical. Then there's the other, who's reading every single part of the Haggadah and reading out loud every single explanation and wants to stop and explore and delve deeper, taking their time. I say, if you're running the Seder and you're creating the vibe of the night, if you're going to be bored, if you're going to be rushed, if you're going to be cynical, then your participants, your guests, they're going to be bored, they're going to be rushed, they're going to be cynical. So therefore, The Seder needs to be a very, very nice medium. Should not be rushed, but should also have a feeling, as we say in Yiddish, gegangen, that it's moving, there's movement, right? The Seder is going somewhere. So there's some very practical things. I don't need to be the one to tell you this, but obviously, one of the greatest things you can do for a successful and an engaging Seder is start on time. Simple as that. And that's something you can ask guests in advance, in sincerity, to be sure to arrive in time. If it's a reminder text message or WhatsApp that goes out, or email or whatever, or phone call that goes out beforehand, just in a nice way to mention in all of sincerity to be sure to arrive on time, and also to have the Seder completely set, to have the Seder completely ready before the guests arrive. And the key to this is thoughtful planning. And I must say, the fact that we have some people here in person and we have over 20 people on the Zoom means that many of us are already taking this seriously, and we're putting that in place. The thoughtful planning is going into place. So hopefully tonight, with these introductions being given, we'll try to cover 3 elements. We'll talk about educational preparedness. Like I said, the fact that we're sitting here tonight is already a good start. We'll talk about creativity. It's number 2. And we'll also talk about a commitment to making the Seder a more meaningful experience for those involved. So preparedness, the best thing you can have is a checklist of everything you need for your Seder. I have right here in front of me a Seder checklist. Now, throughout the night, I'm going to be showing you a number of different things that I have. Either I will be bringing them up and I'll be sharing my screen, or I'll show you how I have it before me. If you'd like, as I'm going to be talking about certain resources that I have, make notes for those resources. And the moment this workshop is done, send me an email, veli@chabad.com.au. You should know my email by now. Send me an email of any of the things we're discussing tonight if you'd like me to email it through to you. So the first thing I'm showing you tonight is a basic Seder checklist. For example, Haggadahs, 1 per person. Make sure to have enough copies of the same Haggadah so everyone at the table can follow along together. Maybe this year it might be a bit too late for that, but if you're someone that's planning on hosting Seders in the future, it's very difficult when there's a number of different Haggadahs and different pages, and therefore people literally are not on the same page. The Haggadah has been translated into tens of languages. You are sure to find one that speaks yours. When I mean languages, I don't necessarily mean specific language, but also certain Haggadahs that come along with different kind of commentary in a different style. That is the kind of Haggadah that you would like to have by your Seder. Now, I can go through this entire checklist, but it's not that extensive, but that's not the purpose of our session here tonight. But if you'd like this checklist, just make a note to email me, and I'm very happy to email you that checklist either later tonight or first thing in the morning. And again, when you talk about preparedness, like I said, it may not be possible this year, but it is a good idea to have the same copies of one particular Haggadah so people can all be on the same page. Another example of preparedness, and this should not be taken for granted. If you're leading the Seder, maybe spend a few minutes just to open up the Haggadah on your own and have a bit of a read through, just a glance before the night starts. Just give you an example. I have given this very class, this very workshop that we're doing tonight, I have done many times. I've done this workshop many times. Now, what I could have done is, I could have just gone into my notes, gone into my practical Seder class, and do it again. The problem is, a few days ago, when I looked over my notes, I realized that no, last year's notes were very, very different. Last year, number one was COVID, and it was a completely different style shiur. It was a completely different style workshop. And then I realized something as well. Last year, I did this in 4 sessions. And now I've taken all of that and chosen what I'd like to put into 1 session. So could you imagine, had I not looked at my notes from last year and began talking here tonight, I'd be very confused. I'd be saying things that aren't practical and that aren't relevant. And instead of being here for 1 hour tonight, we'd be here for 4 hours. Okay, many of you give presentations. Many of you use slides. It's always a good idea to look through your slides if it's been a period of time that you haven't given your presentation. Sometimes you have data that's not up to date. Sometimes you can have statistics that are not up to date, etc. So the beauty about going through the Haggadah before, it will help you also focus on it will help you also decide, on which parts you want to focus on more. And I'm going to elaborate that on a bit later, what I mean when I say that it'll help you decide what parts of the Haggadah you want to focus on more. It will also help you understand as to which parts of the Haggadah you'd like to do some activities. Because I find that a few short discussions or a few engaging activities at intervals during the Haggadah can be much more effective than 1 or 2 very long ones. So by looking into the Haggadah, you'll actually be able to know when you'd like to do something like that. Another example of having a quick glance through the Haggadah will be another upside, is that the more our guests feel personally invested in the evening, the more they're going to enjoy it. That's just the reality. So it will also allow to give guests, family, a task to prepare something for the Seder. When I say prepare something, I don't mean to bring a bottle of wine or to bring flowers, right? Or to bring dessert, right? I mean, maybe to actually prepare some of the traditional foods that we eat on the night. Maybe to prepare a story. I'll discuss that also soon in a bit more of detail. Maybe to arrange one of the activities or some of the props. These are examples that you can delegate beforehand. Another way of delegation is by asking someone to prepare on a specific part of the Haggadah text. That's one way you may want to do that, and if that's appropriate for your family. So Avadim Ayinu is your job. Dayenu is your job, right? Manishtana is your job. And of course, if you are delegating and asking someone to prepare something on the actual text, it should be practical, it should be meaningful, it should be contemporary. Or you may want to ask a guest to prepare something on a general theme of Haggadah. There's an interesting concept I've been looking into is, how many times is Moses' name? How many times is Moshe's named in the Haggadah? You know, how many times is Harry Potter's name mentioned in the Harry Potter series? I'm sure more than once. And then when you go inside the Haggadah and we look for Moshe's name, you'd be surprised to know. I'm not going to give away the answer. Maybe it's some trivia for you or something to work in, but it's missing. Some of it is really missing there. So that would be an idea of giving someone to prepare on a general theme of the Haggadah. Or you can stretch out a bit more. So we spoke about preparing text. We spoke about a theme of the Haggadah, but maybe more of a general theme on the Yom Tov itself, like, great question. In the age of modern technology, are we more free or more enslaved than ever before? Now, These are just examples that I'm giving you. I can give you 100 examples of preparation on the Haggadah text. I can give you 100 examples of a Haggadah theme. I can give you 100 examples of a freedom theme, but I'm just going to mention a few. Whatever I'm mentioning tonight are themes that I have personally used in the past. So in the age of modern technology, are we more free or more enslaved than ever before? Another one relevant to Australia, is contemporary anti-Semitism or the memory of the Holocaust enough to motivate people to live Jewish today? Is that enough as a motivation? Do you believe in miracles? Do we take the repetitive rhythms of life for granted, or do we believe in miracles? By the way I've actually done this in the past is I've turned it into a bit of a trick, because I've asked two people to prepare on the same topic. And then at the Shulchan Aruch meal, it actually turned into a bit of a debate, because I chose people that I know might differ in approach and in opinion. So that's another little bit of a trick where you're actually asking two people to prepare on the very same concept, which brings for more engagement. Another example, ask someone to prepare beforehand to retell a memorable Seder that they attended. You'll be very surprised about where people have celebrated Pesach in the past during their travels. And I see people shaking their head here in the room in attendance, and I see on the call, on the Zoom, some faces, shaking their heads in agreement in regards to, like I said, the Pesach is the most celebrated Jewish tradition of the year. Another example. Personal stories of freedom from a grandparent, an older family member, someone to talk about personal stories of freedom. And this is a good opportunity to get people involved who don't usually share their personal feelings to open up. So if you realize where I'm holding now, I'm talking about preparedness and preparation that we can do before the night even starts. This is all about, like I said, the more people will feel invested in the night, the more they will enjoy the night. And these were a number of ideas of how you can get people involved. What I actually have is, I'll just bring this up to you. I have something which is called discuss and debate. So I have a number of these type of examples of things you can ask people to prepare. I'm not going to go through them now, but again, like I said, make a note for yourself if you'd like me to email you some of these ideas of what I've discussed today, or other themes of the Haggadah that creates an interesting discussion with some guidelines to the discussion, and I'll be very happy to email that to you. In the past, I would have gone through them, but we're covering this all tonight. Am I okay to move along? Any questions, comments, disagreements? Okay. Another way of preparation beforehand, especially if there's children involved, is props, ideas. To create that sense of excitement. Here in Chabad Malvern, we used, in the past in our public seders, we've used the splitting of the sea prop. It's quite an easy thing to do. It can be done in two kinds of ways. You can actually make it in the whole way, walking through a walkway where you can actually have blue shade, blue tablecloth, cut down the middle, walking through, or it can actually be as a runner, as a tablecloth on the actual table, which can also be as a centerpiece. Now, again, I'm not going to go into describing exactly now how you can create all these props, but again, I have in front of me, can you see that? Props. I have detailed instructions on what materials you can use, all type of things that you will have at home that you can use to create these props. Again, make a note if you'd like me to email you these ideas. I will email them over to you, no problem. That's one nice prop idea. There's other less elaborate examples where you can put, I don't know, camels scattered across the table. Where it just makes the table a bit more fun. It's not just another family dinner. Camels, camels. I'm just giving an example where it's not just another family dinner. It's not just even another festive meal. It's Pesach, and we're adding. A prop idea that's also quite nice, really depending on how you're running your Seder, if you're going exactly according to all the steps, is where you can keep track of the Seder. Keeping track of the Seder. So that would be, we all know there's 15 steps to the Seder. So you have a card, and each card, Kadesh, Orchatz, and you put some sticky on the back, and as you're about to do Kadesh, the Kadesh goes up, the Orchatz goes up, Karpas goes up, each one goes up on the wall. You can use some sticky tack, whatever you use, or you can actually have it already on the wall. Here in Chabad Malvern, we've done it both ways. One year, as we went along with each step, we put up the card up on the wall, or sometimes it's actually been a decoration as people came in, the 15 steps were already hanging on the wall. There's an interesting idea for engagement. Not everyone would like to do something like this, but I like to leave something on the table for those times when people's attention wander. So you can have Pesach books for children, right? You can just have some Pesach books for the children on the table, or you can print out some interesting just Pesach articles or something. Bit of a shameless plug, but chabad.com.au, if you go in there, in the Pesach section, chabad.org, you can find some really engaging and thought-provoking articles that you can just print and leave on the table for people when their attentions are wandering. So up until now, we've been discussing some ideas of preparedness before the Seder starts. But let's move on. Let's begin. Let's talk about the actual Seder itself. I believe it's quite nice to begin a Seder, even though you have family and sometimes people, intimate family that will all know each other. I still think it's nice to start the Seder with a bit of an icebreaker, right? You don't have to, when I say icebreaker, you don't have to ask your great aunt to do her favorite party trick. That's not the type of icebreaker I'm talking about. But there's different ideas of icebreakers that you'll see that can actually be used to carry us through the Seder. So it begins as an icebreaker, but it actually can continue being a theme of the Seder. And I'll give now a number of ideas. Okay? I'm reminding everyone, if you have any questions or comments as I'm going along, feel free at any moment to chime in. Okay, so many ideas when it comes time to an icebreaker. We can spend all night, just talking about one. Again, we only have 1 hour. So again, I'm only going to be sharing tonight ideas that I've personally tried and tested. Icebreaker number 1, and just an example, you can use your own creativity to choose whatever you'd like, but a nice icebreaker is people introduce themselves and then they're asked, for example, if you can invite anyone from history to join our Seder, who would that be? Right? So people would answer one thing, I don't know, David Ben-Gurion, King David, Theodore Herzl, the Baal Shem Tov. People can answer whoever, a great grandparent, you may be surprised what people will answer, but the beauty about that is you can set up later on during the meal at certain times for people to explain why, what is it about that person that would want them to be at the Seder, And an experience when I've done this, it's been some very, very interesting, some very counterintuitive, unexpected responses have come about. And it takes people by surprise, because some may need some time to answer. And that's great. We have the whole night. Perfect. More discussion later. Some people may want to say why this person, would be invited to their Seder. Great. More discussion for later. But I must say, very important, and this is easier said than done. This is probably the hardest possible thing we can do with active participation and engagement, is to encourage our guests to keep their answers short and concise. You don't always have all night. You don't always have all night. So to encourage participants to keep their answers short and concise. And I think we lead by example, that if I'm leading a Seder, when I'm talking, should sound like sound bites or tidbits, no speeches, right? No speeches, no long drawn speeches, sound bites and tidbits. You can choose another kind of question to ask as well. It's up to you. Another nice icebreaker, and again, there's millions of ideas. These are only ideas I've tried myself. Another icebreaker idea, which takes people by surprise, is when you leave something under the plate, let's say, and people aren't expecting it. So this icebreaker is what I call the freedom and slavery quotes, which can be placed under people's plates. I already printed out mine for my Seder this year. I'm holding them up. And if you'd like me to email it to you, make a note. I can't promise that I can cut them out so nicely like I cut them for myself, but I can send you these quotes that you can cut and then put under people's plates. So, for example, I have a quote here from Nelson Mandela. "For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others." Right? So a person can introduce themselves, and all they do is read out that quote. I have a number from Jonathan Sacks. I have from Ethics of Our Fathers, George Orwell, the Maharal of Prague, Rabbi Steinsaltz of blessed memory, even quotes from the Torah. And yeah, I'll even have Janis Joplin, who says, "Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose," right? Now, Nelson Mandela, Janis Joplin, the Maharal of Prague, Jonathan Sacks, Ethics of Our Fathers, this is a great array of different perspectives that you can get. So you begin the Seder with people simply reading out that quote. They don't have to say whether they agree with it. They don't have to say whether they like the quote or not. People get to read, and the beauty about it is they hold on to it, and it's something you could discuss later. You can discuss it right then and there, but again, something that can be discussed later, being kept short and concise. The interesting thing is that some of these examples of icebreakers that I'm giving can actually be used in many other ways. They don't have to be used as an icebreaker. They can be used during Magid, when we read the Haggadah. They can be used by the meal. I mean, these icebreakers are talking about freedom and slavery, so you can do it by Avadim Ayinu. We were slaves. You can do it really at any time. So there's no real limit to how you want to set this up. Of course, it will take a little bit of preparation ahead, because you'll have to print these quotes and then cut them and fold them that they can fit under people's email. Ready to move a little further? Ian, give me a thumbs up if we're ready to move a bit further. Okay, good. If there are children by the meal, this can work with adults as well. There's a nice little suspense builder. This is the Elijah the prophet dress up that I quite enjoy. You'll need just a white sheet, You can get a beard. They sell the white beards in some of the gift shops on Glenferrie Road for a few dollars. Cane, that's really it. White sheet, beard, a cane, where you can start growing your beard now. And right in the beginning of the Seder, you announce that we are anticipating a very special guest tonight. We're anticipating a special guest, and you can even provide, if you'd like, periodic updates on the status of this guest's arrival. You know, maybe there's some ethnic profiling issues that he's experiencing, you know. Maybe he's being held up at customs, right? Or, you know, there is a pandemic, and you know, flights are being canceled right, left, and center, and actually makes an appearance. Whoever that person is, they have to know that at the end, at the part where we read Shvo Chamatcha al Hagoyim, that person has to make an early exit and to welcome everyone by the door. I've been asked in the past, so what do we do the second night? If we're doing another Seder, how do we keep the suspense going? That's a bit difficult, but you can direct everyone to one door of the home, right? And then have, you direct everyone's attention in one direction, and then comes, Elijah the prophet comes through a different door or even through a window, but not through a chimney. Now, if an icebreaker is not a good idea, if that's not your family style, if it's not going to work, it would be nice if people don't know each other or people aren't that, well acquainted. There's guests, encourage everyone to just introduce themselves. If that's, or you can just introduce everyone. It's just nice, and just encourage everyone to be involved in that journey during the evening. Because really, it is a journey. In fact, one year, now I'm reminding myself, didn't have this in my notes, but in fact, I'm remembering that one year at the Chabad Malvern Public Seder, our place cards, the name cards, was boarding passes. We printed it as a boarding pass with people's names on it because we really wanted to demonstrate that idea that the Pesach Seder, the place where we begin, when we arrive, when we finish, we should feel different, like we've come to a destination, we've gained, we've experienced something. So it really is a journey. So I remember one year, the place cards, the name cards were actually boarding passes, like they used to be in the olden days. If you remember the good old days, boarding passes? Long time ago, lifetime ago. But yeah, so it is a journey. Email me. I may be able to find those boarding passes. I may still have them. I'll have to look up if we save them. I really find the nice idea is that if it happens to be that a regular Seder guest is no longer with us, and their absence is felt, it's special to name and to acknowledge those that aren't present at the Seder that year. If family experienced loss, God forbid, and that was an individual that was a presence usually at the Seder, it would be a nice thing to mention, talk about that individual. So let's move on. We have the actual Kiddush, and that's how the Seder begins. One of the things I really love to do as another idea of keeping a theme going and holding everything together is I like to actually let everyone know by reading out what step are we doing? Where are we holding? What are we doing? Where it comes to a stop, Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz. But as we know, the Seder and the steps are way just more than practical, just steps of traditions of what we're doing. It actually, some of the symbolism that we're doing really has the ability to reach very, very deep, and for us to understand concepts of freedom. And every detail that we're doing on the night is really grounded in history, spirituality, biblical custom. There's so much going on. And it was all there. All these different steps were created for us to tap into, to have that almost sensory, almost that lived experience of what's going on. So because I'm very passionate about these 15 steps and what these 15 steps actually mean on a deeper level, what I like to say on both a body and a soul level. A body level is what we're actually doing. We're picking up our glass and we're making kiddush. We're taking potato or whatever your custom is and dipping it in salt water. But there's depth. The symbolism actually has secrets that we need to develop. So what I did, and again, email me if you'd like any one of these. Over the years, I've actually created 2 different booklets, which I call 15 Steps to Personal Freedom. I have a smaller one and I have a longer one. When I say shorter and longer, I mean one of them describes the step and the spiritual significance behind the step in a very, very succinct and short kind of way. And the other one is a bit more elaborate. It depends on what, your Seder, what's more appropriate for your Seder. So just to give you an example, I'm just opening it up. I'm not thinking anything in particular. So let's say, I am looking for something nice now, actually. Let's say karpas, right? So the instruction is very simple. I say how. Dip a vegetable into salt water, say the blessing, bore pri ha'adama. This blessing is also for the moror that we will eat later. Simple as that. But then, personally speaking, I say, as we dig into our life story, we learn that sometimes the salty can be sweet. Pain is the touchstone of spiritual growth. Pain is awareness, and awareness is half the cure. The saltiness of our past allowed us to view life from a different angle and to rediscover our true self. While some see their pain as God's abandonment of them, others see it as a divine communication that lets us know we are capable of more, prompting our very best efforts and the use of our full extent of our abilities. So here you have, I've taken something on the idea of saltiness, bitterness, and I've given a personally speaking. So every step, before you do the step, you can have someone around the table read something out like that. So that's a smaller version. Again, email me if you'd like this smaller version and I'll pass it on to you. And then I have a bit of a longer version that was taken from my Happiness Hacks blog. So I specifically have it about well-being and happiness. So let me find a short one, for example, a small one. Let's say step 5, Magid, Jews and their questions. Why not? We read from the Haggadah. We tell the whole story out loud of leaving Egypt. We say it as it is. We are a people born of miracles, and we endure by miracles. What? You don't believe in miracles? The very fact that we are here now telling the same story to our children in an unbroken chain of 3,300 years is a miracle. In Jewish law, the Haggadah cannot be a frontal presentation. It must be in response to a question. And that's where the Manishtana kicks in. But where does Judaism stand with questions? Encouraged or discouraged? So many customs of the Seder are designed to make the child ask, why? From earliest of ages, we teach children to wonder, reflect, and inquire. This allows our entire personality, with all its complexity, to be engaged in our relationship with Judaism. In Judaism, no questions is not a sign of faith. It's a lack of depth. When you ask questions, you are no longer passive, but an active participant. But the Seder also holds an essential message regarding answers. We truly learn by living. We can only understand by doing. That's why the Seder begins with questions. Questions are the cornerstone of Jewish education. And that's why the Seder continues with a whole range of prescribed experiences, because we can only comprehend and answer through the lived experience. Just reading for you to show you an example of a shorter style that I have versus a bit of a longer style that I have, which I'm happy at my Seder this year. I'm going to be printing out the smaller one. Everyone's going to have one by their plate, by their place. And as we go around, we'll take turns reading the smaller one, just what the step is and a little bit of meaning behind that step.
Alan,
Yeah.
Julie would like to know what that was. We missed the beginning.
Oh, I was just explaining. Thanks, Bernie. I was just explaining that I have two versions of a guide to the steps that takes you through the Seder. I was just reading to show an example. One of them is a smaller, more succinct kind of version that talks about what we do and gives a bit of meaningful explanation, very short. And the other one is just a bit longer, that elaborates a bit more about the step. That, like I said, when I do my Seder, I have one by every person and we take turns reading as we go around. It just brings the Seder together. You can track the progression, but it brings meaning to the steps that we're doing as well.
Right, thank you.
Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You know, a while back, and I've been giving this pre-Pesach very often, this pre-Pesach practical Seder class, almost since I joined the Chabad Malvern team. And one of the reasons why I was inspired to do this was based on a story. So it was before Pesach, and someone came up to me and he said that he was very demoralized from his previous Seder. They have these Haggadahs that they've been using for a very long time, since his now young adult children were children. And he must have gotten those Haggadahs from his parents. And he says the Seder comes along, and when it comes time to the Magid, the part where you retell the story, everyone gets a book and they go around reading in English. And this year, one of his kids they were reading, and it was old English, old print, fancy English as he called it. And one of his then teenage children got into a bit of a laughing fit because they were mispronouncing the words and all that. And basically the whole table just got the laughing bug, and that went to Seder. They just couldn't stop laughing, and it kind of, lost its seriousness. It was fun, it was good, but it didn't have the feel of the Seder. And I asked him in all sincerity, without judgment, I said, why do it in that kind of way? Obviously, I told you about Haggadahs. There's so many new, updated prints with, easy to read and good commentary. Why do it in that kind of way? Just passing around and reading English. I said, this year you're going to do it a bit differently. He said, really, I can do it differently? I said, yeah, you're not going to read the entire Magid. You're not going to read every word, passing the English, passing around. That's not a meaningful experience. What's meaningful about sitting around and reading what we don't understand? So much of the Haggadah, in order to really understand what's going on there, you need to have context. I said, this year you'll open the Haggadah beforehand. Hopefully you'll buy some updated, with more, modern English, contemporary, and you'll have a look through and you'll focus on that which you'd like to focus. You'll print a few articles and you'll have more conversation. And I think we make a mistake that we come, and some families can do it. It's fine, where they open up the Haggadahs and everyone just reads around in English and that's it. For some families it works. For some families it's just not. And therefore we want to do things that will get the children involved. Like I said earlier tonight, we want to tell it in the first person. We want to tell it in the now. Again, we're not talking about ancient Hebrews. We're not talking about long ago. Everything that happened then parallels something in each of our lives. We tell it like it is. Like I read in the book, we're a people of miracles. We endured by miracles. You don't believe in miracles. The very fact that in a few days we're going to be sitting around saying the same story in an unbroken chain of 3,316 years plus, it's a miracle. There's nothing shorter than that. So therefore, we have to rethink the Magid. Obviously, we have to stay to its theme. The mitzvah, like I said, is to retell the story, but we want to create an atmosphere where no question is too dumb at all, where people are comfortable to be flexible with some kind of game plan. And therefore, like I said, you have a few days now before your Seder to really look inside the Magid. Your mitzvah is to tell the story, but to be a bit original and be a bit creative in regards to how do we want to tell this story. And in particular, what paragraphs, what part of the Haggadah are we going to focus on? I believe it's better to focus on a few specific parts where you actually learn something and gain than just reading the whole thing in Hebrew or in English without really understanding as to what's going on. And if you want, you can contact me privately and I can point to you to some of the places in the Magid that are a bit more conducive for ongoing conversation. So we have 9 minutes left. So with the 9 minutes that we have, I want to just talk about a few more options, a few more ideas of engagement. There's a nice thing I like to do, matzah facts, which I can supply to you. I have them here in front of me. Well, some of the matzah facts is a very fun thing you could do is that every time matzah is eaten, you can have someone else read a matzah fact. For example, there was a sports hero by the name of Isaac Matzah. He was a New York track and field champion in the 1950s. Shmura matzah is made from grains that have been watched by a Jewish official from the moment of harvest to ensure that they never came into contact with a liquid that would lead to accidental leavening. Long-winded, but that's what Shmura matzah is. The Manischewitz family sold the company in 1990 for $42.5 million. The brand is still the most popular type of matzah in the world, right? That's, if you want, I'm happy to email you a whole list of those matzah facts. Every time you eat matzah, you can share some of these matzah facts. Another option, I have some Seder traditions from around the world. So here I have this in front of me, something I can email to you as well, some things that can be discussed. You know, in Tunisia, Jews from Tunisia break the matzah into the shape of the Hebrew letter Hey, which corresponds to the number 5. Morocco and Casablanca, Morocco Jews would set up an elaborate chair with cushions and ornaments and leave it empty for Elijah's arrival. And in Marrakesh, dishes are prepared using the wine from Elijah's cup. There's so many different examples. Hungary, Jews from Hungary like to bring the bling to their Passover meal by decorating their Seder table with gold and silver jewelry. The explanation offered for this custom is that the Israelites were given the precious metals by the Egyptians to hasten their exodus from the land. These are, again, some resources that I would be happy to share. And also some just general Pesach trivia I'd be happy to share with you as well. Fun facts, the world's largest Seder is held every year in Kathmandu, Nepal, by the permanent Chabad Shaliach for more than 1,000 guests every year. The world's highest and most remote Seder was held in 2012 at Manang, Nepal, 11,614 feet above sea level. Chabad Shluchim representatives were taken there by helicopter to hold the Seder, mostly Israeli Jewish travelers, and then walked for 3 days back to the nearest town to travel back home. So these are, again, some ideas. What I'd also like to conclude in the last 6 minutes that we have, beyond trivia or fun facts, there's also games that could be played. There's a game I've never actually tried this one, but some people told me they have, and it's fun, especially for children. It's called, What's the Connection? It's a grab bag game, which you can play at any time. So you prepare ahead. Remember I said preparing ahead can mean delegating a certain guest to be in charge of this, where it can be done with all the contents in the bag or just one item at a time every now and then. You prepare a grab bag with interesting items that you think have some connection to Pesach. You can also include some things that have a less obvious connection, and you pass the bag around the table, and each guest, pulls out an item to explain why they believe it's connected to Pesach. Another game you can play is Taboo, which you can play over dinner. You're going to have to prepare ahead because you're going to have to cut up the taboo cards, which I'm just showing you that, that I have and I can send to you. So this is what my taboo cards look like. You prepare ahead by printing and cutting up the cards. You hand out one card at a time to a guest. You remind them that no one else sees the card. And the designated guest has 1 minute to describe the word that is in bold on the top of the card without saying any of the words that are listed below it. And the rest of the guests have to guess what they're trying to describe. Okay? Those are all games. You can Google the rules of Taboo. It's very, very simple. Another nice game is Celebrity Head. And just to show you as an example, so here's my celebrity head, which I've already prepared for Pesach. Make yourself a little crown. And then my celebrity head that I'm going to choose is I'll show you in one moment, once we share it on the screen. 2 paper clips is just fine. Right? So the person obviously that is wearing the celebrity head crown has maybe 20 opportunities to ask, right? To try to guess. They don't know who their celebrity has. In this case, it's Tzipora, Moshe's wife. There's a lot of other options out there as to what you can do. Another cute thing that I like to do, and again, if you'd like the details for this one, I actually recorded this one, so I can send you the video of this. I have this big black box in the center of the Seder with the Hazchem, danger, do not open signs on it. And it just sits there in the center of the table. No one touches it during the Seder. And then when you get to the 10 plagues, the children love this. There's, I went to the dollar store. I was able pretty much to get everything. For Dom, you have a red-end toothbrush, or you take a bottle and you put in a red watercolor, plastic frogs, a plastic flea or a bug, wild animals. For Shchin, you can have body cream, borod, the hail, foam balls, or ping pong, table tennis. So there's a lot of cute little things you can do where the kids really, really enjoy that. So here we are. Those were some of my ideas to make things a bit more meaningful, a bit more engaging, a bit more fun, and a bit more interactive. Like I said in the beginning, some things will be appropriate and will be doable for your respective family, some things not. But I hope that you can take away just some of the things we mentioned today and incorporate it into your family Seder. If you want any of the resources that we discussed tonight, please tell me and I'll email them to you. If you have any other questions or requests or whatever that you particular to your specific Seder, you have my mobile, and you can call me anytime leading up to Pesach, and I'm happy to help as much as I can. There we go. 1 hour. I hope we were able to help. We'll unmute if anyone has any questions or comments. I'm happy to stick around a little bit.
Thank you.
Veli, hi. You mentioned how old the whole concept of having a Seder going back 3,300 or 3,299 years. Do you happen to know, it might be an interesting fact, how old are the oldest known Haggadot that are in existence?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I do have something we have right here. Give me one moment.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. If you have to just look. Okay,
I have this really nice booklet. In fact, I believe you can download it on a Pesach greeting email that Shimshon sent out today, where it has a beautiful little section on the Haggadah throughout history. So I'm not sure if it will answer your question as to what is the very, very first Haggadah that we have. One thing we know for sure is the Haggadah is the most printed Jewish book, right? It is the most printed and the most popular Jewish book. I know many people that Haggadahs for them are collector's items. People like to collect many different Haggadahs, and if anybody ever wants, maybe a bit too late for this year, never too late, but for next year, we have a shelf with probably 10, 15 different kind of Haggadahs you can use to prepare for your Seder. But if you do look at the email, Ian, that Shimshon sent out today, there's a downloadable booklet, and one of the sections, just 2 beautiful pages of a little bit of a tour of Haggadahs throughout history, some from 1695, 1857, with different styles, Latin and lyrics, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Yeah. Anybody want to share from their own perspective something we didn't mention tonight that you have incorporated in the past, or something you'll be incorporating this year?
We already often have the props that you're talking about, the ping pong balls or the plastic wild animals or frogs already lying on it. So when everyone comes into the Seder, they're already lying on the table.
So this year you're gonna take a black shoebox, Ian.
Yeah.
And you're gonna go online and you're gonna Google danger, do not enter, or danger, do not touch. You'll print it and you'll attach it to the box, and you'll put everything in the box, and you'll only open it during the 10 plagues.
Yeah. Well, Alavaya had some grandchildren to get to be excited about that. Maybe one day.
We'll work on it. No worries.
Thank you, Billy.
No worries. My pleasure. All the best, everyone. And like I said, the earlier you email me, the quicker I'll be able to get this stuff to you. And wishing everybody a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. Just how lucky we are here, not to take it for granted at all, that the fact that we can celebrate in a way that we're celebrating so differently to what it was like last year, although last year did have some upsides to it. There was something intimate about it. There was something special, everything in its right time, and how lucky we are here, A, compared to last year, and B, compared to some places in the world. And we shouldn't take that for granted at all. Something very special.
Veli, just mention again your email address. Sorry, I should know it.
Veli, you know, Ian, I'm not even, Ian, if you don't have my email address.
I have your WhatsApp personal.
Veli, VELLY @chabad.com.au.
Thank you,
Thank
Veli.
you, Valley.
Okay. No worries. All the best, everyone.
Thank you.
Chag Sameach.
Sameach.